guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from Norway, Norwegian language English subs, released in the year 2015, directed by Paul Eher, and this movie is called Vildmark 2. So Vildmark 2 takes place in a sanitarium that is located in the remote countryside and mountainous areas of Norway, and you've got this building that is going to be destroyed, but before it's destroyed, it has to be known whether or not it harbours mercury levels and asbestos. So they send in a team in order to take care of this, to investigate, and this team are briefed in what they have to do. There's a lot of work. Now they have 3 days to do it, and if they fail to do this, their jobs are going to be under a lot of pressure, so there's no time to waste, and they believe that this is just going to be a standard job, but it's certainly not that when they realise that there is an evil presence that resides within this sanitarium that is basically going to put everybody's lives at risk. So what starts off as a simple enough but very demanding job turns into a bloody game of cat and mouse, and a survival game that threatens to basically not let anybody out of this sanitarium alive. So whether or not that is the case, who comes out of it and who doesn't, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Vildmark 2. This was another film that I was expecting a lot from. Vildmark 1 from 2003 was relatively successful. So coming into this movie, I actually saw the trailer and I thought it looked very good, typical Norwegian sort of production levels. And I actually thought that, I was in the mood for this type of film. So after watching the movie, I will say that it's nothing brilliant. It does have its problems, but I would say it's very enjoyable. So if you do like these sorts of movies where people go into a setting and they don't know that they're under a lot of, a lot of danger, and that there's an unknown presence that's slowly picking them off. If you like this type of film, I think Vildmark 2 definitely delivers, because it's got a great production level, it's got great cinematography, it does a very good job at setting the actual tone of the film very early through its soundtrack. I thought it just gives it a very eerie sort of feeling. I thought the overall cinematography, it was beautiful, but at the same time eerie once again, because it shows you how big this sanitarium is, but how secluded the sanitarium is. So once again, if they run into trouble, no one's around to really help them out. So it gives you the sense that this is the centre of the universe, and I just thought the way the movie, the start credits were, I just thought it does a very good job at getting you into what is actually going on. So when this team arrive in this sanitarium, you feel that there is a close sort of connection. A few people didn't like the characters, but I thought they were done fairly well for the type of horror film that it is. It doesn't need great character development because it's really relying on its atmosphere, but there's enough development in there for me to care about what happened. I wasn't overly gutted when someone died, but I didn't want to see them die. They weren't annoying to the point where you just want to see them ripped apart in the worst possible way. So there was enough attention into the characters for you to get some sort of connection, and it does give you a little bit of fear factor when the scary things start to happen. So the cinematography inside this sanitarium was very eerie. There are secrets behind this sanitarium, and the overall history behind the sanitarium is what really makes the film go. As I said, there is a generic sort of element to this film, but it's made up with a very strong storyline, and when the story starts to evolve itself into the present day from the past, I think it really does start to snowball into a genuine horror film. So it does have a bit of a slow start that I had a little bit of a problem with, because it didn't seem to go anywhere. You don't really get to know too much about these characters, so the movie didn't need the slow build-up that it does, but it does give you that overall impending sense of doom that something is not right, and for that I do appreciate slow build-ups, but I thought the slow build-up could have been used a little bit more to give you a bit more insight into these characters, because although you don't really care about them, you don't want to see them die at the same time, but they could have been a little bit better than they were. So the slow build-up will get under, get on a few people's nerves. But if you are willing to get through that slow build-up, I thought the overall second half of this film was very good in what it was doing. The suspense levels were very good. I thought the villains were very interesting. There were some very disturbing elements without it really being graphic, so it does have that strong psychology to it. And I really like the overall graphic violence to the movie as well. It's not overdone, but it is done in a way where you think that, these people who are doing these horrible things are brutal, and that there is also a little bit of a spin on the subgenre that this movie takes place in. I'm not going to really tell you what that subgenre is, because the less I say the better, but I thought this movie was going to be about something that it actually wasn't. So although it does have a generic formula in people going into this endangered environment, people getting picked off one by this unknown presence, you've seen it done a million times before, but it's a little spin on it that I actually thought made it a little bit creative. So although it's not the most creative film, it does have a little bit of creativity in there to make it worth viewing. But once again, the only problem with the film is is that if you skip the opportunity to see it, you're really not missing much. So although it's not a great film, it's certainly not a bad film. I had a lot of fun watching it. Although the characters weren't that great, I thought, as I said, there were very predictable and generic moments. But right at the end, although I could predict who was going to survive and who wasn't, right at the end really took me by surprise. So that was a little bit of an added bonus in what was a very enjoyable film, but not a movie that has enough depth to really make it a movie that I would say go out there and see straight away. But if you come across it, I definitely think this is 90 minutes well worth your time. So overall, for Vilmark 2, going to give it 3 stars, go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies and I'll see you later.